You know, it's funny what a smell can do. Just this morning, I was sitting out on the porch, same one I've sat on for years now, and the neighbor gal must have been vacuuming, 'cause I caught the faintest whiff of apricots floating on the breeze. Real sweet, real gentle, and just like that, I was back in my old kitchen, barefoot on cool linoleum, pulling a pie out of the oven for Ray and Nancy Logan like the world had no plans to hurt me. It's been nearly 20 years since I last baked that pie. 20 years since I could even stand the smell of it without feeling like the floor was about to fall out from under me. But today it caught me off guard. Brought with it a memory I've kept tucked so far down, even I forgot the edges of it. And I thought, Lord have mercy. Maybe it's time I opened that box. You see, there's a story I've never told the whole of. Not to my son, not to the ladies at church, not even to myself when the nights got long and quiet. It's about betrayal and silence, and the kind of leaving that don't come with a slammed door, but with a car engine humming low under a desert sky. It ain't easy to speak of. Not 'cause I'm ashamed, no ma'am, but 'cause once you let the truth out, you can't ever pretend it didn't happen. Still, when I smelled that pie today, something in me stirred. Like the Lord was whispering, "Now, Dolly, now's the time." I was 63 when it happened, old enough to know better, but still young enough to hurt like a fool. Back then, we were living in Wichita Falls, Texas. Little white house, front porch swing, raised mower lines on the grass, just so. And Nancy? Well, Nancy had her own key. She was more than my best friend. We grew up side by side, cut our knees on the same gravel road. She held my hand when my mama passed, and I held hers when her youngest left for college. Folks used to say we were closer than sisters. She even picked out the dress I wore to our church's jubilee one year. Can you imagine? Trust like that don't grow on trees. Or so I thought. But you know what they say, it's always the folks sitting at your table who know where the silver's kept. That summer, the one I keep seeing every time I close my eyes, I noticed Ray acting different. Nothing loud, just slower to smile, quieter at supper. And one night, I came in from watering the garden and heard his voice down the hall. He was on the phone, Logan, soft, real soft. And then I heard her voice, Nancy's, saying something I never in a million years thought I'd hear from her lips. "You miss me already," she said. I stood there, holding my apron in both hands like it was the only thing keeping me upright. I didn't say a word. I just waited. Waited until the next morning. When Ray was out in the garage, I checked his coat pocket. Don't know why. Maybe I already knew. And there it was, a folded hotel receipt from Amarillo, dated 2 nights back. Room 204. I remember every scratch of ink on that paper. Funny how shock don't come with noise. It's just quiet, like the world's paused to see what you'll do next. And that, sugar, is where this story truly begins. 'Cause what I did next, well, folks still call it the craziest thing I ever did. Some say it was brave. Some say it was foolish. I say it was the only thing I could do. But I'll tell you all that in time. For now, I just want you to know, I ain't never told this whole story before. Not like this. Not out loud. And if you're still sitting with me, bless your heart. 'Cause it gets messy before it gets wise. But it's real. Lord, it's real. And today, of all days, I think I'm ready to remember. I grew up just outside Wichita Falls, before the highways came through and turned everything fast. Back then, summers were slow and sticky, the kind where you could smell peaches before you saw 'em. We lived in a 1-story farmhouse with a tin roof that sang when it rained. Mama always said the sound of rain on metal could wash away worry. I believed her. Truth is, I believed a lot back then. I believed good people did good things. I believed prayers didn't get lost. And I believed friends, the real kind, stayed by your side like the shade of a pecan tree in July. I met Nancy Wilkins the day I turned 7. She had crooked bangs and no front teeth, and she shared her grape soda with me at the church picnic without even a skin. We were thick as thieves from that day on. We carved our names into the oak by the schoolyard and swore we'd always be each other's forever friend. We traded secrets, jelly bracelets, and dreams. Lord, the dreams we had. Hers were full of dresses and dance halls. Mine were gardens and kitchens with lace curtains. I didn't need big things. I just wanted love I could count on, a porch swing of my own, and someone who'd say, "I'm home," every evening without fail. That someone turned out to be Raymond. Ray McKinney, tall, quiet, and polite in that country boy way that makes your knees a little soft. I met him at the Harvest Festival. He was leaning against the pie table, wearing suspenders and a crooked grin, and he said, "If you baked that, I might just marry you on the spot." I laughed and told him I was too young for Maureen. He said, "I'll wait." And he did. He waded through letters when he joined the service, waded through Nancy's giggles and nudges, and waded through the day I walked down that aisle with borrowed pearls and shaking hands. Life was simple then. We didn't have a pot to pee in, but we made do with what we had. I cooked. He worked. Nancy would drop by with rhubarb jam and town gossip, sitting cross-legged on my couch like she owned it. And for a while, it was sweet. Not perfect, no life is, but sweet in the way hot biscuits are sweet. Humble, warm, meant to be shared. I thought we were solid. I thought our roots were deep. I guess what I'm saying is, I didn't see it coming. Not from Nancy. Not from Ray. Back then, I still believed that kindness was stronger than wanting. That friendship was sacred. That when you tell someone you're family, it means you'd never break their heart. I know better now, of course. But back then, Lord, I was still someone who believed in forever. I used to sit on the porch after supper, watching the sun melt into the fields, thinking, this is it. This is the life I prayed for. And I'd hum little tunes under my breath, sometimes Crazy by Patsy Cline, 'cause Nancy loved that one, and I sang it just to make her smile. Funny, isn't it? You never know which days are gonna last in your bones, which smiles are gonna turn into memories too heavy to carry. But I remember those days so clear, it's like they're stitched into my skin. My hands were younger then. My heart, too. And if I close my eyes just right, I can still feel that porch breeze and the sound of Ray tapping his spoon on the glass when he wanted more tea. I thought love looked like that. I thought it would last. And maybe that's the saddest part. I didn't lose faith all at once. It happened slow, like the way autumn sneaks up on you, one leaf at a time. It was a Tuesday night. I remember, 'cause the casserole dish was still soaking in the sink from supper, and Ray had just finished his usual ritual. 1 beer, recliner, 6 o'clock news, while I was folding laundry in the back room. You ever have one of those evenings where the house feels too quiet, but you don't know why? That was one of 'em. The kind where your hands keep moving through the motions, but something deep in your gut starts itching. I wasn't looking for trouble. Land sakes, I never have been. But when I walked down the hallway to put his socks in the drawer, I heard it. The bedroom door was cracked, and Ray was on the phone. Now, he never took calls in the bedroom. That was our rule. Phones stayed in the kitchen. But there he was, talking low. Real low. I paused. Not out of nosiness, just instinct, I'd guess. At first, it sounded harmless. He was Logan. That soft kind of laugh you use when you're trying to charm someone. I hadn't heard him laugh like that in months. And then came her voice, Nancy. Clear as day. That same sweet, lilt-in tone I'd heard 1,000 times across my kitchen table. She said, "You miss me already?" and then giggled. My whole body went cold. Not mad. Not yet. Just cold, like I was listening to a stranger wearing her voice. I backed away real slow, hands still full of warm cotton, and I stood there in the hallway, staring at the wallpaper we'd picked out together 25 years ago. Daisies, faded now, but still holding on. I remember thinking, maybe I'm imagining things. Maybe it's something else. But deep down I knew. A woman always knows. The next morning I woke up early. Ray was in the garage, working on something noisy. He always made extra clutter when he didn't want to talk. I walked to the closet, reached for his Sunday coat, the one he only wore for funerals and fancy dinners. I don't even know why I reached in the pocket. Call it a whisper from above. And there it was, folded up neat, like it meant nothing. A receipt from a motel out in Amarillo, room 204. I held it in my hands like it might catch fire. Same handwriting as always. Same card he used to buy my birthday necklace 3 years back. But this time, it wasn't for me. I sat down on the edge of the bed, paper shaken in my lap. I felt like my heart had fallen clean through the floorboards. I didn't cry. Not then. Just sat there, staring at that receipt like it was a letter from some other world. The part that got me wasn't the receipt itself. It was that he didn't even bother to hide it. Like I wouldn't find it. Like I didn't matter enough to cover his tracks. And that hurt worse than the rest. You see, the trail don't always scream. Sometimes it's quiet, polite. Sometimes it's the smile they give you while they're walking out the door. I couldn't eat that day, couldn't pray, couldn't even speak. Just drifted around the house like a ghost, touching things we built together. The porch swing, our wedding photo, Nancy's peach preserves sitting unopened on the shelf. I looked at them all and felt like I'd stumbled into someone else's life. A stranger's house wearing my memories. And yet, through all that stillness, something stirred in me. Not rage, not revenge. Just a pull, a nudge. Like the Lord himself was saying, you don't have to stay where you've been broken. I didn't have a plan. Not yet. But my hands started packing that night. Quiet, slow, deliberate, like I was wrapping up a chapter that had turned sour. I didn't tell him. I didn't tell her. I just knew. Something was about to change. And I reckon that was the moment my story truly shifted. Not the receipt, not the call, but that silence between my decision and my goodbye. That space, where a woman finds her voice, even before she speaks a word. It was just past midnight when I zipped up that suitcase. Ray was asleep in his recliner, mouth open, snoring like a man who had no secrets. The TV was still buzzing low, casting blue light across the living room, and the house smelled faintly of old coffee and lemon furniture polish. That was the last moment it ever smelled like home. I didn't take much, just the basics. My Bible, a few changes of clothes, Mama's locket, and one photograph. Me, Ray, and Nancy at our old 4th of July picnic, all smiling like fools under a paper banner. I don't know why I packed that photo. Maybe to remind myself later that it had been real, once. Or maybe just to feel the weight of what I was leaving behind. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a note. I just walked out feeling like I was shedding skin with every step. The hardest part wasn't the leaving. It was the quiet. The way the house didn't try to stop me. The way the world just kept turning, like nothing had happened. I drove all night, no map, no plan, just Arizona in my mind, because that's where we spent our honeymoon. It was the only place I could picture that didn't have their shadows in it. By the time the sun came up, I was somewhere in New Mexico, parked behind a gas station, crying so hard I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just sadness. It was shame. I felt like a fool. Like I'd been the last one to know I was living in a story where the ending had already been written without me. And then came the anger, not the fire-breathing kind, but that deep, slow simmer that settles in your bones. I was angry at Ray, at Nancy, but mostly at myself. For not seeing it. For believing that love, just by existing, was enough to keep people loyal. Lord, I was angry. But I didn't have anyone to give that anger to, so I kept it, like a stone in my pocket. A few days later, I called my son, Patrick, just to let him know I was alive. I didn't tell him why I left. I just said, I'm taking a little time away. He was confused, of course. Tried to ask questions, tried to guilt me, Mama, this isn't like you. And it wasn't. But sometimes, you don't even recognize yourself till you're standing alone at a payphone with a voice that don't sound like yours anymore. He offered to come find me. I said no. I told him I'd be in touch, but I needed space. Truth is, I didn't think he'd understand. I wasn't ready to hear his doubt layered on top of my own. That was the beginning of my ghost years. I lived out of that old camper I bought off a man named Clyde who smoked too much and charged me half what it was worth. I slept in Walmart parking lots, rest stops, and the occasional RV park where the manager didn't ask too many questions. Some nights were peaceful, stars overhead, crickets humming. Others were cold and mean, filled with what-ifs and coulda-beens that rattled louder than the wind. I missed warm floors. Missed the smell of clean laundry. Missed my porch swing. But mostly, I missed being someone. I missed being seen. And everywhere I went, I carried this question like a stone in my shoe. Was I right to leave? I kept asking myself that over and over. And most days, I didn't have an answer. 'Cause the world don't tell women like me what to do when the people you gave your life to stop seeing you as precious. The world just says, move on. Be graceful. But what do you do when grace ain't enough? When all that's left is your name and a half tank of gas. I didn't know where I was going. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't go back. Not to that house. Not to that silence. Not to that smile that wasn't real. And so I kept driving. Into the desert. Into the unknown. Into myself. There's a letter I wrote in a diner in Nevada, the kind with sticky floors and pie that tastes like memory. I'd been on the road for 7 years at that point. 7 years of gas station coffee and talking to myself more than to people. I was sitting at the corner booth, alone but not lonely, staring out the window at a thunderstorm brewing in the distance. My hands ached from the cold, and I wrapped them around a mug like it was the only warmth I had left. Somewhere on the radio, Patsy Cline was singing Crazy, soft and slow. That was the song Nancy used to hum while she washed dishes at my sink. And I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the rain, maybe the pie, maybe that voice on the radio. But something cracked wide open in me. I pulled out the notebook I kept in my glove box and started writing like my life depended on it. To Ray, to Nancy, to Patrick, to God, to myself. But mostly, to the part of me I'd left behind. I wrote, I don't hate you, but you broke something that don't mend easy. You stole not just love, but the place where I used to feel safe. And that's the cruelest part. You didn't take it 'cause you needed it. You took it 'cause you could. I cried in that booth. First time in years. Not the kind of cry you hide behind a napkin. I mean chest heaven, soul letting go crying. The waitress came over, asked if I was all right. I said I will be. I just needed to remember how it feels. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. That letter, all 12 pages of it, sat in my camper for weeks. Then one day, I put it in an envelope, addressed it to Nancy. No return name, just a town and a zip code. I don't even know why I sent it. I didn't want her to answer. I just needed her to know what she cost me. know what it means to disappear and still wake up every morning with your heart beating and your hands itching for purpose. 3 weeks later, I got a call. Unknown number. I didn't answer, but the voicemail. Lord, I'll never forget that voicemail. It was Patrick, my son. His voice shook. He said, "Mama." I read the letter. Nancy got it and didn't know what to do, so she gave it to me. I didn't know, Mama. I didn't know how bad it was. I'm so sorry. That's when the clock stopped. I was standing in a roadside laundromat in Flagstaff, waiting on my last load, and time just stopped. I remember hearing the buzz of the machines, smelling the detergent, watching the red sock tumble in circles. But inside me, everything went still. He knew. He finally knew. Not just that I had left, but why. And somehow, that changed everything. I sat on that hard plastic bench, holding my phone to my chest like it was holy. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt seen, not judged, not pitied, just understood. And the grief, the shame, the silence, it all poured out like floodwater. I had spent so long carrying the weight of leaving, I forgot what it felt like to be loved without question. I didn't stop crying for a long while, not out of sadness, but relief, like someone had opened a window in a room I thought was sealed shut forever. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to go back, no. That door had closed, but I was going to live forward, with open hands, not clenched fists. I lit a candle in the camper, said a prayer, and for the first time in 10 years, I pulled out a recipe card and started writing down how to make my apricot pie. Not for Ray, not for Nancy, not even for Patrick. For me. The thing no one tells you about starting over is just how quiet it gets. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, not birds and breeze and front porch rockin' chair quiet. I'm talking about the kind that crawls under your skin, follows you room to room, won't let you sleep. The kind that don't echo back when you speak. After that letter, after the tears, after Patrick's call, everything just got still. Like my whole life exhaled and forgot how to breathe again. I'd spent so many years running not fast, just far, that when I finally stood still, I didn't know what to do with my hands, or my days, or myself. I didn't bounce back. I didn't find joy. I just existed. Woke up, made instant coffee. Saturday, watched the world go by from a camper window that faced a dirt road I couldn't name. Some days, the light hit just right, and I felt almost human. Most days, I just felt hollow. I used to be the kind of woman who filled a room with laughter, with smells of pie, with fussin' and feedin' and fixin'. I used to hum when I cooked, talk to the tomatoes in my garden, waved to every neighbor like they were kin. But something in me changed. Got quieter. Not bitter, just smaller. I didn't trust my laughter anymore. Didn't trust the way people said my name. Even kindness started to feel like a trick door, like if I stepped through it, the floor might give out again. I stopped wearing makeup, stopped wearing perfume, gave away my aprons. You wouldn't think such little things matter, but they do. When you stop feeling like yourself, your reflection starts to look like someone you never met. I remember staring at a mirror in a gas station restroom once and whispering to my own face, "Who are you now, Dolly?" And the worst part? I didn't have an answer. My faith, well, I'll be honest with you. It staggered a bit. Not gone, just bruised. I still prayed, but the prayers were shorter, more like sighs. Lord, help me. Lord, don't forget me. Lord, please let me feel something good today. I wasn't angry at God. I was just tired. I knew He was still there. I just wasn't sure if I was. But I kept my Bible by my bed, read the Psalms like letters from a friend who hadn't given up on me yet. Time passed in soft, strange ways. I stopped keeping track, measured my weeks by grocery runs and oil changes. I wrote letters to myself, one a month, like little breadcrumbs in case I ever wanted to find my way back to the woman I used to be. Some of them were just one line, "You're still here." That was enough some days. Patrick wrote more often after that call. Sometimes he sent pictures, my grandbabies growing up without ever seeing my porch, but knowing my name. That helped. So did the letters he saved from me. Said he kept them in a shoebox labeled Mom's Voice. That nearly broke me all over again. But in a good way. The world outside didn't change. Sun still rose, trucks still passed, folks still fell in love and broke each other's hearts. But inside me, something settled. Not healed, not yet. Just quieter. I started seeing beauty in stillness. Started listening to birds again. Started taking longer walks. I didn't laugh much, but I did breathe deeper. And that was something. You don't go through what I did and come out the same. That woman I was apron, pearls, full of trust. She don't live here no more. But I carry her in my pocket, alongside the pain, the memories, and yes, even the love. 'Cause no matter what happened, I loved, deep and wide. And that still counts for something, don't it? It wasn't some grand sign from the heavens. No choir of angels, no beam of light cracking through the clouds. Just a girl in a yellow coat, standing in front of the vending machine at the assisted living place where I'd been staying the past year. She must have been no older than 9 or 10, eyes wide, trying to figure out how to get her candy bar unstuck. I'd been watching from the lobby window, tea in hand, wrapped in my old knit shawl, the one Nancy gave me all those years ago that I still couldn't quite bring myself to wear. She kicked the machine once, then looked around, cheeks red with frustration. And before I even realized it, I'd stood up and walked over. Now I ain't what I used to be. These knees creak louder than my front porch did. But somehow, I gave that machine a good thump on the side, not hard, but just enough. The candy bar dropped. Her little face lit up like Christmas morning. She looked up at me and said, "Thanks, lady." And I swear I hadn't been called lady in so long it almost felt like a new name. I smiled, a real one this time, and said anytime, "Sugar." It was a small thing. Minute, really. But I went back to my chair feeling like I'd moved a mountain. That night, I slept through the whole night for the first time in months. No dreams, no tossing, no ghosts. Just stillness, the good kind. The next morning, I asked Martha at the front desk if they needed any help in the little garden behind the cafeteria. She looked surprised. "Well, Dolly," she said, "I thought you didn't like being out in the sun no more." I shrugged and told her maybe the sun didn't feel quite so heavy anymore. That garden became my church. I pulled weeds, planted herbs, talked to the tomatoes again. Just like I used to. There was this widower named Joe who started helping too, always wearing mismatched socks and talking about baseball like it was scripture. He'd bring lemonade on Tuesdays, and I'd pretend not to like it, even though it was better than mine. We didn't talk much about our pasts. Just the plants, the weather, little things. But that was enough. The world had turned again, and somehow I'd caught the rhythm of it again. I started writing more, not just to myself, but to Patrick, to my grandbabies. They wrote back. One of them even sent me a picture she drew of a pie. Said, "Daddy says you used to bake the best kind." I laughed so hard I cried. And then I cried harder, 'cause I realized I wanted to bake again. I pulled out my recipe box one afternoon and stared at the card for my apricot pie. My hands shook a little. Not from age, but from memory. I hadn't touched that card in 20 years. I baked one that night. Just one. For no occasion. For no one but me. I burned the crust a little. The oven here runs hot, but I didn't care. I ate a slice in silence, and it tasted like grief and joy all wrapped up in flaky dough. That was the moment I knew I was still here. Not just breathing. Alive. The pain didn't vanish. It never does. But it loosened its grip. I stopped living in the shadow of what was taken from me and started leaning toward what I could still give. Turns out, hope don't always come in the shape of a miracle. Sometimes it looks like a stuck candy bar and the courage to stand up one more time. There's a little box I've kept in the bottom drawer of my dresser for near 20 years. Nothing fancy, just a wooden thing Ray once gave me on our anniversary. Said it was for my jewelry, though I never had much worth locking up. Inside it now, there's only 3 things. That old motel receipt, folded neat like a wound that never scabbed over. A photo of me, Nancy, and Ray, our arms around each other, smiling like liars, and the lace shawl Nancy gave me on my 50th birthday. That box has followed me across states, through parking lots, into every room I've called home since I left. I didn't open it often, but I knew it was there, like a stone at the bottom of a river, never seen, but always felt. Last week, I woke up before dawn, couldn't sleep, same as most days. The air had that edge to it, crisp but not cold, the way Texas mornings do when the seasons start shifting. I made tea, sat by the window, and watched the sky turn lavender. And something just came over me. Not a voice, not a message, just a feeling. Gentle, but firm. Like the Lord was putting his hand on my shoulder and saying, "You've carried it long enough." I walked over to the drawer, opened it slow, and took out that box. My hands didn't tremble. My breath didn't catch. I just sat down with it, like I was sitting with an old friend who'd overstayed their welcome. I opened the lid, touched each piece, the paper, the picture, the shawl. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked. And for the first time, I saw it not as proof of my pain, but as proof that I survived it. I stood up, walked out to the garden where the ground was still soft from last week's rain, took my little trowel and dug a hole right beneath the rosemary bush. I buried that box, every bit of it, covered it with earth, pressed it down, and whispered, "I forgive you." Not for them, not for what they did, but for me, for the girl who gave her whole heart and didn't know it would be broken, for the woman who disappeared so she wouldn't have to shatter in front of anyone, for the mother who thought silence was strength. And just like that, I felt light, not empty, light, like I'd been holding my breath for 2 decades and finally remembered how to exhale. That was the moment I chose. Not to forget, no, I'll never forget, but to stop letting it define me. I ain't the woman who got left. I'm the woman who walked away. I'm the woman who survived herself, who found grace in gas stations and peace in canned beans and joy in a single slice of pie, who wrote her own ending, quiet as it may be. I went back inside, pulled out a fresh card, and wrote Patrick a letter. Told him about the box, about the morning, about the rosemary. Told him he didn't need to worry anymore. Mama was doing just fine. And I meant it. Every word. You spend so long grieving what was lost, you forget you still got time to love what's left. And I've still got some road ahead, Lord willing. Not much, maybe, but enough to plant a few seeds. Enough to taste sweetness again. Enough to hold a hand without wondering when it'll let go. I ain't angry. I ain't bitter. I ain't broken. I'm just Dolly McKinney, still breathing, still smiling, still standing. And that child, that's enough. If you asked me back then what I thought life was all about, I might have told you something sweet, like love or a family or a tradition. And I wouldn't have been wrong, not exactly. But I'd only have been speaking from the first half of the story. Now, sitting here with 81 years behind me, I see it a little different. Life, it's not just what you build or even what you lose. It's what you carry and what you choose not to carry anymore. That's where the truth is. That's where the freedom is. I spent too many years holding my breath, trying to be what was expected of me, a good wife, a loyal friend, the kind of woman who smiles even when her heart's cracking. I thought if I kept things nice, polite, quiet, it would all work out. But I'll tell you what, sometimes you can follow every rule, bake every pie, say every prayer, and still get your heart broken. And when it happens, no one hands you a map for how to keep living. That part, you've got to figure out on your own. I used to believe people always came back. That love, no matter how shaken, would find its way home. But it don't always. Some doors, once shut, don't open again. And the real courage, it's not in waiting by the door. It's in walking away from it with your back straight and your heart still beating. I learned that the hard way. And yet, I'm still here. Not bitter, not hard, just wiser. What I know now is this: love is real, but it ain't perfect. And it's sure as sugar ain't guaranteed. Trusted, yes, but hold a little back for yourself. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Out of the understanding that sometimes the people we love are just people, flawed, fragile, and fumbling their way through like the rest of us. And forgiveness. Well, it's not a gift you give for them. It's the key you use to unlock your own peace. I don't have the same kind of days I used to. No big Sunday suppers, no busy hands in a full house. These days are quieter, but they're fuller than I ever thought they could be. Full of slow mornings, handwritten letters, the smell of rosemary in the garden. Full of moments where I remember who I was and smile because I like who I've become. You don't have to be loud to be strong. You don't have to be fearless to move forward. Sometimes strength looks like getting up and making a cup of tea even when your bones ache with memory. Sometimes it's just not giving up on yourself. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there's been sitting in silence too long, waiting on an apology that ain't coming, waiting for someone to come back who ain't ever gonna knock on that door again. Maybe it's time you packed up the box, wrote the letter, baked the pie, laughed for no reason at all. Maybe it's time to stop standing still, 'cause life don't wait. It moves with or without you. And child, there's still beauty ahead even if you've had your heart torn clean in two. If I can say one thing to whoever's still listening, it's this: don't let what broke you be the last thing that defines you. Choose who you become next, and choose it with your whole heart. Well now, if you've made it all the way here, bless your heart. You've sat with me longer than most ever have. And maybe that's the real kindness in this world, not fixin', not explaining, just sitting beside someone while they lay their story bare. I thank you for that. You know, folks always think stories like mine are about heartbreak. And sure, there's pain in it, enough to fill a river. But that's not what I hope you carry with you. This story, more than anything, is about what comes after. After the door slams. After the silence. After the pie burns. What you do with the stillness. How you choose to wake up the next day and say, I'm still here. Some days, I still find myself listening for Ray's footsteps on the porch, like muscle memory. I know he's gone. Been gone a long while now. But sometimes, in that sliver of time between sleep and waking, I swear I hear the hum of him turning the radio, or smell his coffee, or catch the sound of Nancy's laugh through the kitchen window. And I wonder if somewhere deep down in whatever comes after this life, they remember. If they know what they did, if they'd take it back. And then I breathe in, real deep, and let that thought drift away like steam from my mug. I don't hate them. I want you to know that. Not anymore. Hate is heavy, and I've learned how to travel light. There's a kind of quiet joy in getting older. You stop chasing and start resting. Start planting yourself in the moments that matter. A letter from your son, the first tomato of the season, a well-worn hymn humming from the chapel. You begin to see love not as fireworks, but as a porch light left on, a seat kept warm, a pie baked just because. These days, I bake more often. Not every week, but enough. And every now and then, I'll leave a slice by the front door, just in case someone stops by. Maybe it's silly. Maybe no one's coming. But the door stays unlocked, and the tea stays hot, and I keep hoping. Not for them to come back, but for whoever needs to know that no matter what you've been through, you still got room to be loved. And now, before I let you go, I want to ask you something. Not to put you on the spot, that maybe to plant a little seed in your own heart. Do you believe real love is meant to return? Or is it just meant to teach us, shape us, then move on? It's a hard question. One I still don't have a clean answer to. Some days I think love always finds its way home, even if the house has changed. Other days I believe it only visits once, leaves fingerprints, and never knocks again. But every now and then, on quiet mornings like this, I feel a peace settle over me, and I think, maybe Ray does remember. Maybe Nancy looks out her window and wonders if I ever forgave her. Maybe, in some invisible way, we're all still connected by regret, by grace, by the kind of love that don't need a name anymore. And maybe, just maybe, the next slice of pie I bake, I'll share it with someone new. Or maybe I won't. Either way, I'll be all right.